Welcome everyone to my first video on Legions Imperialis. So, it's a game from Warhammer that I said I was never going to get into, but then I bought an absolute bargain and I'm fully in. It's been on the shelf for a while because I was trying to paint other projects and not Butterfly for once. You know how it is. But I've had one demo of it, or seen one demo, and yeah, that's it. I'm in. I'm painting it up. Back to butterflying, I guess. So, what comes in this box? So this is the Civitas Imperialis. So basically, the same as most 40k, 30k things. Find a fancy Latin-sounding name. So, in this box, apparently it makes 4 epic scale buildings. But these buildings are fairly varied from what I understand. So you could have a single height building, a height and a half building, or half a height building, and you can stack them and things like that. So normally I like to make things modular. So I'm really keen to see what happens in this kit and how modular I can make it. And this will not be my first box, I am sure. Because I said that about Necromunda and something like 14 boxes in now of the columns, walls, platforms, stairs, tiles, the marketplace, the stronghold, So I'm back in the room after an hour. What do we have here? So, lovely little windows, so I'm going to get the light out of the way so it's not going to blind everybody with a reflection, not just off my baldy head. So, on the artwork, it is very grey looking buildings, but straight away I can see stained glass windows, so you can really lean into painting those stained glass windows and making them pop. Lots of nice oranges and reds. Yeah. You can really make them shine. I haven't seen any so far that is super bright, but tempted. And one thing I have noticed straight away, before I even read the instructions, the rooftops are reversible. So you can either have that on this particular building, or vents and things like that, which looks like a lot of fun. So I have 2 sprues that are exactly the same there. And another 2 sprues are exactly the same here. So once again, lots and lots of detail. So I can see that you've got tall buildings, half buildings, and regular buildings. And I can see that some of the roofs have holes in the center. Looks like a little power grid going on there. So I'm assuming that's probably for objectives. So there's going to be radar dishes and whatnot. Maybe AA defenses. Yeah, all looks pretty good. So let's actually read the instructions rather than guesstimating what we've got in there. So now I can bring the light back down again. So, mold line remover, cutters, and plastic glue. So you can make 2 single square buildings. You can make 2 1x3 buildings, I guess you would call that. So that's pretty good. That's your 4 buildings that you can make as standard. Or you can make two buildings, if you know what I mean, 1x2, and 2 1x4 buildings. Giving you options there. Very nice. And it shows that you can clip, if you don't glue, just place. You have a building and a half there, and you can place that on the top. And you can even place that on top of another 2. And you can even make a square 2x2 building, which I don't think it shows you in the instructions, but I am keen to make one of those at some stage. So I will make, what am I going to make? The 4 looks pretty nice, but I'm going to go with a 2, probably something like that, because that looks quite fun. And see what I've got left over. Be nice to make a nice long building as well. Can even make a L-shaped building. It looks quite universal, so I guess the only thing that's limited is the number of parts in the box and your mind. So fairly limited in my case. But yeah, I like this kind of stuff. I like the fact that you can customize, modify, and keep it modular. So this is obviously one box that they do for Legion Imperialis. All the other buildings look like they can clip onto it. So some have more steeple and spirey type of pieces, which I believe do fit on the top. But yeah, so the whole idea of these buildings really is to block line of sight in the game, and you can garrison troops inside. So each one of these spaces houses infantry, basically. So your basic infantry base, if that makes sense, will fit on the top. So if you had a single, you put your single base there with your tiny little dudes on it, and the remaining models in that unit go on that unit card off the table, so you know what's going on. If you had a building like this, you could put 2 bases and then put the remaining models of that unit on your card, and so on and so on. The details look really cool, obviously, because it's Games Workshop and their plastics are always really, really, really good. So I'm looking forward to putting this together. Instructions don't look too bad. So you've got a few stay pieces on the side of buildings as well. Not really for stability, more for looks, because you can't really knock these over. I say that, but when I play Necromunda, what's a game of Necromunda without Ross trashing the absolute hell out of the table just by dropping a dice, trying to grab it, and then destroying it like Godzilla. So, looking forward to putting these together. Of course, in this video, not only am I going to put them together, I'm going to paint them up. Yeah, you're in for a treat. So, better get cracking, I suppose. So I pretty much assembled everything from the book. I didn't want to assemble a 4 long piece like that, purely because I didn't think I had enough 4 pieces to be a large build in its own right. So when I get the second kit, which I will do, I will make a 4. So obviously it's a build and a half size, so it's quite tall. And I can use that as a 4 on the ground floor, and then I can add this on top. But that clearly looks like it belongs on the first floor itself, because the stanchion's on the side. But what I did make one amendment to, changing it slightly, is this piece here. So I know you don't glue the top piece on, so you can have it like that. And you can always have another section, one of these, to clip on the top, and then you can make it bigger, or you can have it the other way around, and you can mix and match. Not a problem, I get that. But why leave that blank? I don't know, but that's what it suggested. So I have changed it because you have loads of these square pieces left, like so, which is not a problem. I just believe if you want that in its own right, if you want a tiny building, more of a obstacle to go around rather than obstacle to shoot over, why not put that in there? So that now, because the plastic glue is dried, rather than cutting off the end or breaking off the end, I'm just going to leave it like that, because I'm always, on this particular piece, going to have that at least on there, which is fine. So this whole kit, what can I make with this whole kit? So I've got a few little pieces left over, no wall sections, but definitely I have floor sections. So I got, this is just what I've made. I've made a 2x2, a 3x1 section. I'll get these out of the way in a second. A 2x2, another 2x2, 1x1, and another 1x1, because I thought they're fairly universal, and I also had stuck one in there. I could put a radar dish or something from like a Space Marine Rhino sprue or something there. That would look pretty cool. But at the moment, I've just left it like that. And I've got two 2x1 shallows, I guess I call them, like so. And then I have the 1x1s that go shallows that go on these, or go anywhere to be fair. But that's the kit it's designed for. Let's see if I can slot it on there. The glue's still probably a little soft, so I probably shouldn't have done that. But that's not bad. So on the box it says 4 buildings. Now presumably it means on the average of 4 reasonably sized buildings, i.e. that's a reasonably sized building, I would say. That's a reasonable sized building, I would say. And then you've got these, I guess you could do... Oh, hang on, there's a door there. It's important to get the theme right. So where would the door go? It doesn't just go out into nowhere, does it? So I guess you'd put the door first? Because how else would the tiny little people inside the building get out? Right? It's real. It's real, I'm telling you. That way around. But then that doesn't make sense for those guys. So all I have to do is that. Come on, lock in. I do like the way these slot in. They're very, very tight slotting in. I do worry once I paint them, will it be too tight? And then I use that, I guess, to go there. That's fine. So that is 4 reasonable size buildings, which is completely fine for a game of Titanicus or Legions Imperialis. So I'm firing up the airbrush. I've just rattle canned these things black. So nice and a little bit shiny, but they're quite nice and smooth. So rattle can just for ease. Make some noise. And I'm just going to zenithal with a grey primer through the airbrush in the centre of each of the tiles. So it doesn't have to be too neat, just nice and quick in the centre. Basically I want to make the panels kind of pop in the middle, just so they look a bit better from a distance. With the grey, like so. But what I'm going to do is get a nice white in a minute and blast anywhere that has a stained glass window. Make it a little bit brighter. I think I'll make the top a little bit brighter because it makes more sense. But as you can see from a distance, it's quite eye-catching. Rinse and repeat on all of them, and then pick your generic building colour. Run that through the airbrush, and it should be slightly brighter in the middle, where you zenithal spot or under highlight, if you want to call it that. Basically, just skips a step, I guess. So you've got your normal building tone, and in the middle of each panel is a slightly brighter version of it. So you haven't got to put a brighter colour in the middle. Just makes it eye-catching. Super quick for an airbrush. Probably rip through the majority of the terrain in a day, but I've probably doubled my work because I want to paint these stained glass windows. Why have I done that to myself? Yep, I'll carry on doing the rest. Okay, so I've picked my colour. I'm going more of a slightly yellowy grey, if that makes sense. So I'm going with a bone white from Vallejo. So bone white is not white. It is this kind of colour. So in my opinion, slightly yellowy grey. But I like to do the inside edges of the roof first. Of course you can do this with a regular hairy brush, but an airbrush is a damn sight quicker. So I'm doing all the base colours with the airbrush, and then I'm going to do the roof and the details a regular brush. Airbrush just speeds up the process. So looking quite nice, looking quite smooth. And I'll do the front as well. So get into all the difficult places first. Probably should be wearing gloves. But at this stage you probably know me. Filthy mechanic by trade. Just as filthy in the hobby. So that's the kind of colour you're left with. It is very much yellow, I would say, rather than white. But maybe it's just the torchlight. I will move that out of the way. Nope, poor lighting in here at the moment. So at the moment I am painting as the sun is just about to set. So kind of between lights. Even though I've got multiple lights around the room. But hey ho. Yeah, so in my opinion, I would say that's the first coat. I'm going to put another thin coat over the top. That is quite yellowy, in my opinion, but I'm going to do a whole lot like it, because I want to be a special snowflake and I don't want to do the box art. But the box art is quite a whitish grey, and that's also okay. So I just wanted a bit of colour on the table, that's all. Okay, so next for the roof, I'm going to use a little bit of Mechanicus Standard Grey by Citadel. So it's a very nice base colour. So it covers very, very well on the roof. So I went for a slightly darker colour. So far this is one coat, and you'll definitely need 2 coats. I want a little bit of a contrast. So you've got a nice light, bony, yellowy, grey light colour, and you want a darker colour for the roof. So a roof like this obviously has a bit more texture. So getting all the little nooks and crannies. But yeah, I'm using a wet palette, thin out your paints just a little bit. So obviously you'll need at least 2 coats, because even though it's a base colour, obviously it looks streaky and the previous colour will try to shine through. Once your rooftop's are done, then hit some metallics. So for the weird porty venti things, I'm going to go for some Balthasar Gold. So some off goldy looking colours, but you can go bright gold if you want, so like a nice Retributor armour kind of colour. And some other pieces out there that metallic-y, like some roof vents, things like that. I'm going to go for some good old-fashioned lead belcher. Just really like the colour, and when you put a wash on it, I feel it still kind of pops. And you could always dry brush it with a brighter silver as well, like a Necron compound or something like that, to really make it stand out a bit more. But I'm going to weather these buildings up. I mean, they're definitely going to be in the middle of a battlefield, so I'm going to make them nice and dirty. So starting with some Balthasar Gold and hitting some vents and things like that. And for the ceiling fans, like I said, I'm going to hit some silvers. But any silver that you enjoy using, totally fine as well. So they're starting to shape up quite nicely. Really do like these kits, fantastic. So next, time for the washes. So grubby them up before you want to do your stained glass windows. If, like me, you're going to go crazy and do that, you can just dry brush the window frames, which is also okay. So dry brush a bit of silver or something over the window frames, and that will be okay. For some stupid reason, I'm going to try to do it stained glass because I want to be special. But anyway, you can keep these clean if you want, and that's fine. But this is supposed to be a battlefield after all, so I am going to weather these guys up. So it's totally up to you what you want to do. Maybe use some medium with some agrax, so then it gets in all the recesses and doesn't look too grubby. Or maybe use a bit of streaking grime for AK. Once again, a little bit of white spirit to thin it down. But I've never used oils before. Only like a white oil in like object source lighting, things like that. So today's the day I'm actually going to dig out some oil paints from the attic that have been there since Noah was a lad. And I've got quite a nice kit, to be fair. That has been in there, like I said, for years and years and years. Well, I can't even fit on camera. It's a massive kit. So lots and lots and lots and lots of oil. And I'm going to try a nice rusty brown, thin it out with some white spirit. And I'm going to try that. So this could go horribly, horribly wrong, and on camera would be amazing. So I've got a little dish here, a little bit of white spirit, a little bit of the brown, a little bit of the black, making more of a burnt umbery kind of texture. And hopefully, because this stuff is oil, not put too much on the brush, should have a pretty good capillary effect. So you can see it's trying to get in all the recesses almost instantly. Like I said, you have the same effect if you had a very nice gloss varnish, and you probably could use a wash and it'd do the same kind of thing. But I've never used this stuff before, so I thought I'd give it a go. So that was gently, looking pretty good, and now I'm going to pretty much hit everything just to see what that looks like as well. Once this is dry, I'll then use cotton wool pad with some white spirit on it, just to take off the excess. So I don't want to be too crazily soaked, but something like that. I do want my terrain to be slightly dirty as well, so that's why I'm covering everything and wipe it off. It should leave a bit of a residue on everything, but I want a heavier residue on the recesses. So that's what it looks like. And here's one I made earlier. So cotton wool pad, taking off the higher layer. Still looks kind of grubby, but still keeping my original colour, and I've got plenty of stuff in the recesses. So I'm going to rinse and repeat on all of my pieces of terrain. Remember, you can keep your terrain clean if you want to, but I want to make mine grubby. So that's where you get a grubby building kind of like this. So once you wiped off any of the excess you don't want, you could always bring it back a little bit on the edges with a dry brush. Once again, another optional step, but a little bit of pallid witch flesh, so a little bit brighter than the base colour that what you originally had. And then obviously after you put a bit of streak and grime or whatever you're going to use down, in my case an oil, you might want to use a bit of an edge highlight. Now it doesn't have to be very much. You could spend a bit of time doing this, or you could just dry brush. Hasn't got to be masses or at all. So try a little bit on the bottom. Still possibly a bit too heavy. Using my dry brush palette off to one side. Right, I think that is probably about right. It's a nice poofy brush. There are some really good dry brushes out there. Artis Opus, for example, a very nice dry brush. Or if you don't want to invest so much money, you could always use makeup brushes. I'm just got an old poofy brush. Something that's got lots of bristles, nice fat head. Hardly noticeable, but you're just making those bricks just a little bit crisper. I might add a little bit more, and then I've made myself a nice white ink from those oil paints, and then I'm going to start dropping it in the windows of the buildings, like so, for the stained glass. Now that's just me being a glutton for punishment. You could, of course, just dry brush those windows, and then it's done. No harm, no fuss. But me, I'm probably going to ruin these things. I'm probably going to spend way too much time on these things. So far I've spent good 4 or 5 hours on this terrain, and I'm pretty much done. But obviously stained glass is another additional stage. Okay, next, the stained glass windows. Like I said, optional extra. Probably going to be a pain in my ass, but I'm doing it anyway. So, contrast, Imperial Fists. So, give it a damn good shake. And let's see what this looks like. Put it on pretty thick. hopefully all the leady bits holding the panes in glass will still show through. So it's quite bright, so that light is probably a bit intense. I'll turn it down a digit. And you should be able to see the framework showing through. So once dry, I will then add the red panes of glass. So after 1,000 years of painting the stained glass windows, they look quite nice, but I can imagine in the 31st millennium that there's window cleaners, and if the rest of the building is dirty and this war-torn place, you would imagine the windows would be pretty grey as well. So I've got a nice mix made up here, a little bit of white spirit as per usual to thin it down. So once again, you can use the oil, or you could use a bit of streak and grime perhaps. So this time I'm going for streak and grime, just in the recesses, possibly a bit too thin, but you can always add more later on. Now that's too thick, that's about right. So thin it out again, working it around, soaking up the excess, and we'll see what it's going to dry like. So I want it grubby, but somehow still seeing the colours behind. So hopefully we have some nice pictures when I rinse and repeat and wait until it's dried. So that's the end product after the weathered up windows have been done. Of course you can get them dirtier or keep them a little bit lighter. Those are a bit dirty there. So not completely uniform because I've painted each piece individually because they're all modular. You can take them all to bits. I just think it's a wonderful kit. There's lots of detail on it as per usual Games Workshop stuff. I didn't think it was too bad price wise, so like they suggested, 4 buildings, so that's 4 basic buildings I guess, for about £25, maybe £30. So on a normal game, maybe get a couple boxes in. I don't think you need too many, but I'm really chuffed with them. I really like the detail, and they came out pretty much the way I envisaged. I didn't want to do the box art, and I'm kind of glad I did the window panes in the end, even though that was the most back-breaking bit and the most time-consuming bit. So if you just painted them silver, like the box art, these pieces of terrain will take hardly any time at all. I reckon you can paint a piece like that, start to finish, in a couple of hours, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't when it comes to terrain. Weirdly, it takes nearly as long as a full-size piece of terrain, even though these guys are a little diddy. But yeah, really enjoyed painting them. Definitely want to buy more. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, obviously please hit the like button and all that other goodness. Take care everyone. See you in the next video.